Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this next edition of Chat with Spencer. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Spencer Bowney. I'm the Executive Director of Achieve Brown County. And before I introduce our featured guest this morning, just a reminder on what these Chat with Spencers are all about. I was just telling Robin, our guest, that we've been doing these now for, 9, almost 10 months. They were conceived by one of our AmeriCorps Vistas, Nikki Erdman, as a way for us to share a little bit more with all of you watching today about the work of Achieve Brown County, especially through the eyes, ears, and lived experiences of our partners or other community organizations. Sometimes our conversations have been really focused on that work. Other times they've been focused more on the work of that organization, which is what I think this chat with Spencer will be all about today. So I'm really excited to introduce our featured guests, Robin Scott. Robin is the executive director of an organization in Green Bay called We All Rise. Robin, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm really excited to have you here too. So if you've watched these many times over, then you know that I will ask Robin a series of questions. Those questions will be familiar to those of you that have watched these many times over. But chances are Robin and I will go off script, and our hope is to have just more of a conversation really focused again on getting to know Robin and the work of the organization that she not only leads, but founded just a few years ago, right, Robin?
Yes, 2017.
Awesome. So we'll dive into that in just a moment. But first of all, Robin, I would love to hear from you more about just who you are. Who is Robin Scott? Who is Robin Tinnen? Scott comes from her recent marriage. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And about your life's journey as well. So where did you grow up? What got you to Green Bay? If you're not from Green Bay originally, what's most important to you, et cetera. Just tell us who you are.
All right. Well, so I'm a work in progress, Spencer. I just recently turned 30 years old. I'm most proud of being a mom. I have 2 stepchildren, a 13-year-old twin, identical twin boys, a 12-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old son, and a 3-year-old. And he just recently turned 3 as well. And so a busy mom. I'm also a recent graduate of Lakeland University. So I have my master's in clinical mental health. I'm also a director, like you mentioned, of a beautiful and growing agency here. But I'm also the oldest sister of 7 children. And so,
oh my gosh.
Yes. So at 30 years old, the baby is 19 this year. And all of them they're all in college. They're all just yesterday. Most of them have started classes. And so my brother's over at Madison. We got a criminal justice major, and then 2 in nursing. And so I have many hats and I'm really busy. But really just, I'm most excited about being a mother, a big sister, and a friend. And then also really just a community member that wants to do my part in the work in building a beloved community here in Green Bay. I always say that I'm from 2 places. And so I grew up south side of Chicago, in Inglewood, and came here first time in 5th grade. My mom was a very young mom. And so by the time my mother was 23, there was 7 of us. And so she kind of went back and forth between 2 communities. And so one day she'd be like, 15 years ago, this is so many older people. It's not a younger crowd. It's nothing to do here. I want to go back home. And then we'd be home and she'd say, really concerned for the safety of my kids. Just want better prosperity for them. And so we'd be back in Green Bay. And so we dealt with a lot of different life circumstances that had us back and forth between here and other places growing up. And so I always say I'm from Green Bay as well, because I find myself responsible for this community. responsible for the young people and the other folks that are here. And like I said before, I really want to do my part. And so that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. I'd say that was a lot of it about you. Thank you for sharing that. So a couple things really struck me. As a parent, I love that you started first and foremost by saying that you're a mom. That's awesome. As many people know, my wife and I have two kids, and they are the center of our world. There's no more important responsibility in our lives than raising the two of them and helping them to be good community members as well. I love that you talked about that just a moment ago. That is something that I think many of us share with you, our strong belief that we have a responsibility to not just contribute to our community, but make it a place for everybody to be able to succeed in school, work, or life, which really gets at the mission of not just Achieve Brown County, but I think your organization as well to some extent. So tell us about your journey with We All Rise. I mentioned before that you are the founder of the organization, and you pointed out that you brought it to life in 2017. But tell us about your journey in doing exactly that.
Yeah, so I worked in the school district previously and had an opportunity years ago to be able to do my part in supporting the Green Bay community and Black youth in the community with a grant from Department of Children and Family that was managed by In Domestic Abuse Wisconsin. So leaving and stepping out of my role at Howe as a student learning advocate and getting to become a prevention coordinator in community with an after school program. My first mission was to create an unapologetic space where Black youth could be free. They could talk about issues of racism and discrimination and also learn essential Black history facts and ways to advocate for themselves, as well as dive into a 28-week gender violence prevention curriculum that for that time had young people learning about what we know right now is the Dare to Know campaign, and that's instances of intimate partner violence and how to stay safe. And so being a part of the protective factors for young people in this community to make sound and smart decisions and to also learn about the risk factors that come along with early like relationships. And so that's how I got started. We were, wildly successful. We're continuing to grow. We projected that we'd serve 30 kids in that first year, 10 at each of our feeder schools, which was Howe, Washington, and East. And as most folks in our community know, when they hear about our work, we had 30 plus kids at the middle school, always 20 plus kids at the high school level weekly, and 15 or more kids at Howe Elementary that participated in the gender violence prevention program. And every year it has grown. And so there's been a lot of shifts during the pandemic, and I'm sure we'll get to that, but really that is what initially inspired me. And as most folks that work with young people know, when they trust you, they really do get their family members to trust you. And when they find that you're a resource that they can lean on, when mom says, okay, I need to get this paperwork done, or I'm really trying to start this new business, or I have this new idea, young people are always like, call Miss Robin, let Miss Robin know, and I'm sure she'll help you, or she may know someone else in community. And so I've been blessed with a really strong network here in Green Bay of folks that have been able to help me help families. And so initially where I was a prevention coordinator, and I was just working closely with young people, what I found is that in my office hours, I was working with their parents and their grandparents and their friends and their moms. And that really inspired me to really talk to some of my friends, my closest friends, about what was really happening in my work and what I was seeing as the need. And so every single day, it is a beautiful journey teaching young people. But one of the things that I know, and we all know, is that you can teach young people, but then they still want to go back to homes that also have access to those same sort of resources and that same sort of connection. And so really, We All Rise is organically became We All Rise from what's called Black Youth Alliance Wisconsin, and that was our after school program. And so young people has really been the reason why there is a We All Rise. And now families are able to access those same resources here. We have a center. Before it was at the Green Bay School District, after classrooms, and then my home where kids found refuge. And we're able to teach classes. And now we see this happening on the ground in a brick and mortar building, and families are every day able to access these services throughout the week.
That's awesome. There's so many parts of that part of your story that I would love to pick apart. I'm sure we will talk about more of them, but another two things struck me in what you just said. One, everything that you just said about youth development in general, something that you and I didn't talk about before we went live here is our shared history in youth development, so to speak. I got my start with the YMCA many years ago, working with and for young people. And I totally agree with you that if you do youth development really well, if you really focus on the relationship with the young people with which you are working, then all of what you're doing with them starts to spill over into their families. And I heard that loud and clear in what you just said, that it's not just about working with the young people, that We All Rise is fortunate to serve, but it's their families as well. And the fact that your organization has grown from working first with young people to serving their families and now ultimately the entire community is really pretty remarkable. So just wanted to call that out. The other thing that really struck me in everything that you said is something that you didn't say, but I feel like was resonant in all of what you talked about, and that is the name of your organization. So I'm curious to know, how did you choose the name We All Rise? What does that mean for you?
I love that question. And actually, Spence, that's the first time I've been asked that straight up. So myself and three other women, Amy, Samantha, and Rachel, we were a group of women that, we did work in the community in all different areas, mass incarceration, as well as young people work. And we feel like it just came about, we're after our full-time jobs, trying to build a nonprofit and get all of our paperwork in order. We hit a moment where we're at the paperwork part. It's like, what is this called? What is Black Youth Alliance? What does it organically become? And so through a process of our own, just putting words out there and trying to feel in the space exactly what it was. We're like, we all move forward, we all rise. And when we said it the first time, it made sense. And then we knew right away that it was the African American Resource Center. And I remember saying that it's the African American Resource Center. It's all about being able to give resources, not being one track, not just being a domestic violence sexual assault service provider, not just being an after school program, but being about mentorship and skill building and legal advocacy, and really thinking about the root causes of oppression for our folks, and providing an array of services. Even if we're not masters at it, we know that we have a network of folks here that really are great at certain things that we can connect folks to. And that's how it became about. So we're all rising. I always say one thing, Spencer, and it's when we go to the margins to help the folks that are most marginalized, underrepresented, and undersupported in our communities, then we are able to support everybody. And so as long as we're going to the margins and we're helping the most marginalized, we're able to support an entire community and lift up an entire community. And that's essentially what it's all about. I tell folks our focus population is Black folks. That is what we do day in and day out. That's what we're reading about and wanting to master and get better about, understanding the historical prevalence of it today. But we serve everybody. We're looking for all our community to move forward. And that's why we go to the margins, to be able to support our focus population. So We All Rise, I think it came about itself in a way.
I love that. Like I said, I felt it in your previous response, but to hear you talk about how it came about and what it really means to you and others that are so passionate about the work of your organization makes perfect sense in it. And what you said about serving those that are marginalized and the impact of that on our entire community is something that Achieve Brown County strongly believes as well. Our mission and our vision statements contain the word all, and it's in all caps because of exactly what you just said. But there's no denying that in our focus on Black children and Brown children and First Nation children and all children that are experiencing disparities, that that the vast majority of children in our community are not. We are lifting up everybody in our community, making it a better place. So again, that really resonates strongly with me personally and as the executive director of Achieve Brown County. So what have you learned along the way? And I would ask that perhaps you bring it up to a year and a half ago, the beginning of the pandemic and some of the other things that we'll talk about in the months that followed the beginning of the pandemic. But what did you learn along the way up to that point? And what were some of your greatest highlights in your work?
So pre-pandemic or in the last year, you said?
Let's start with pre-pandemic because we'll talk more about what's happened in the pandemic and relative to the event of last summer in just a moment.
Yeah, so pre-pandemic, I learned that, like our community has been hungry for supports that are original to cultures. Like we need culture specific work happening here in Green Bay. Our young people, I've learned that they felt disconnected in so many ways because a lot of times it's been assumed that, almost like they're not from here, right? And they've had a hard time with belonging and social connection and even in a city where most of them right now that we're serving have been born here. They're hearing stories in their homes all the time about other places that their parents have grown up. And so it just is primeval as the history of Black folks in our nation is the realities that there's so many things that young people, when they don't find that organic connection to their communities that they lack. And it becomes really difficult for them to navigate, right? And say, this is home, or this is where I feel most comfortable, or this is a plus for me, right? So I've learned that it's our job as a community to make that possible for our future generations. And it's our job as leadership across the community to let kids know that like there's no reconciliation without truth, right? And so we have to first admit the history that is real for even our city. We have to admit that we've for a long time as mainstream organizations and folks with privilege, and I certainly have my own, that we've had access to things that so many community members that their lives and their stories have been erased for so long that they don't have access to. And so they deserve a place at the tables, and they deserve a voice. And it's certainly our responsibility to give that, right? It's not that bootstrap mentality or the savior mentality. We've been going about it for a long time the wrong way. And young people are leading the charge with telling us how to go about it, right?
Yep.
They're showing us exactly how things are done and how we are to be inclusive, how we are to do our own work first before we enter into space and ask other folks to do the work. I've learned that every family, every person in our community, we have our own different sacrifices. And while culture is important, the work for racial justice and social justice is important. It's at the forefront right now for very many reasons. And I think that'll bring us to the discussion about the pandemic and what that slowdown and also the death of George Floyd did for an entire nation. Yeah, that's what I learned.
Thank you for all of that. And we'll go there next. But before we do, I really, really appreciate how you just talked about how we all have to do our own work first, right? as a white man, I've certainly recognized over the past year and a half, 2 years, in stages and steps throughout my own journey, all the privilege that I have and the responsibility I have to do that own work myself, and then transform that into doing work for my community in a meaningful way. And that work is really hard work for a lot of people, but it's really necessary work. And to your point, if we're not doing it ourselves, if we can't look ourselves in the mirror and ask, how are we going to be different? We can't ask our young people to join us in that. We can't build authentic relationships with our young people because they not only expect that, they demand that of us as people who are hopefully creating the community in which they get to live and steward themselves at some point. So I love that you brought that up, because that is so very true, and something that I'm reminded of in the work that I get to do, that I am so privileged to get to do every single day on behalf of our community. So thank you.
Yeah, and certainly social media, Spencer, has given them a platform of their own to be able to spread the message, not only to each other, but to previous generations. So that intergenerational learning that's happening across social media platforms, just like Facebook, right, is so
Case in point.
absolutely. And they're able to comment very quickly, recorrect, redirect, and educate. And I have a 12-year-old daughter that when she sees something or is ready to shake things up, she'll quickly send a link, right, to educate folks, or to educate even her own peers about how to be more inclusive, how to spread more love and be more supportive.
So let's talk about the pandemic now. I don't need to tell you this. The past 17 months have been unlike any that we've collectively experienced regarding the pandemic, the murder of George Floyd, everything that has come along the way. Tell us about your experience personally, how you've navigated it in your own life as the executive director and founder of We All Rise. Share with us whatever you'd like to share with us, just about what it's been like for you.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we know that when the pandemic struck, like as a nation, as a state, city level, community, we were not ready, right? We were not ready. Most of us had never even heard of the word pandemic. I hadn't, but we quickly had to educate ourselves and then get into high gear, because overnight life was different. And then in the first couple of weeks, it changed a lot. And then there was a lot of fears. And so the past 17 months, I mean, obviously we're still in the midst of a pandemic with Delta going around in our community. But the past 17 months, they've been rough, but also really beautiful and really revealing. I feel like as a community, those young people, as well as agencies like ours and other agencies in community, we had to say what we needed based on what we were seeing on the ground when things started to shut down and buses were not running and resources shifted overnight. We had to reach out to our funders in this community, Green Bay Community Foundation, the Packers, United Way, all those folks in our community, the Department of Children and Families, and say, hey, this is the realities for our kids. This is the realities for the community members that are homeless and can't get into shelter because COVID is rampant very quickly within the homeless community. This is the reality for domestic violence. And sexual assault overnight, folks that were losing jobs, get direction, right? And so what I learned over the last 17, it's saying internet is a little unstable. Can you hear me?
I can now. Yeah, you went away for just a second there, but you're back.
Okay. What I learned over this last 17 months is that it really takes all of us to stick together. Um, at the end of the day, there's no point in blame or pointing fingers or anything. When the going gets tough, it's really about risk that folks take. It's really about the commitment that they make to helping folks that are most affected. It's really about being able to change in the moment and resiliency. And so I was Inglewood proud, as I like to say, during that time, and really happy for the experiences that I had growing up, and the values that my mother instilled in me, and the values that life and early experiences taught me, because there wasn't a lot of time to really move in fear. There wasn't a lot of time to really think about what we're going to do as an agency. We had just recently opened up our doors, and it was hopeful for a growing group of folks to be able to access our services. And the pandemic hit within months. And so we said ourselves, we're as a staff, we looked at each other and said, we're an essential agency, right?
Mhm.
We're providing free mental health to some of the most vulnerable folks in our community right now. And we thought we were going to be able to scale that and predict it. But overnight, 211 was like, go to We All Rise, they're open, right? And other folks were like, go to We All Rise, we're open. And we didn't know what the health and safety exactly looked like, but we followed the CDC recommendations and did the best that we can. And luckily, we're still doing the work. So the last 17 months has really taught me that like you need your people that are around you. You need your community. There's no point in operating in silos. We have to figure out ways to partner, to work together, to do our own work, like I said, first, so that it's not the responsibility of other agencies to come in and teach first, then partner, right? Um, it's really about love and support, and there's risk associated with that all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
Spencer. And so that's what 17 months. I'm happy that I'm a resilient person, and I'm happy that God really surrounded me with a group of resilient people, because I don't know that a lot of other folks would have took some of the risks that my team took to be able to support our community. And then there was also teachers and other community members and day-to-day folks that became donors. They said, this is my first time giving to a charity or giving to a nonprofit, but look at our realities, right? And then the pandemic, the death of George Floyd, it slowed the whole world down.
Yeah.
It slowed us all down. And for the first time in our lives, many of us, many folks with privilege too, had a fear of a virus that could kill them, um, that could sneak up and kill them, that nobody knew how to control. Nobody knew what to do next or what was going to come. And so I think seeing George Floyd, because Black folks have been murdered on TV for a long time, and
Yes, I
police
have.
brutality has been the reality for our community as long as we've been here. And so I think the pandemic slowing folks down, and that fear that became innate for every person across the world, I think it really opens folks' eyes to actually then feel connected in a way like this virus can sneak up on me, or things that are outside of my control. And for the first time, there was a little bit of closeness and understanding that sparked an uprising that's literally going to that has changed the world and will change our entire future. And so, in so many ways, I'm grateful that this racial justice and social justice is on the forefront, that everyday folks are having the conversations, because Black and brown people have been having these conversations and have been dealing with the fallout and the realities of all the injustices and inequities that exist forever. And then the conversation about the health inequities for Black women, and the fact that we're dying more in childbirth in 2021 than in any previous years. Those are realities for our community. And there's a lot of folks that are having those conversations right now. And so that's what's going to make the difference for the future.
There is, so I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm literally getting chills, Robin, because there's so much of your experience and what you're sharing that is just hitting me on an emotional level. There's so much that is hitting me on a hopeful level as well, if you will. And there are two words that you used that I want to lift up. One is risk. You talked a lot about the risks that you and others in your organization and Black people have not only faced for years but continue to take even in the past 17 months. And the risk of showing up and standing up and speaking out in ways that are consistent with how you've done that for years, and ways that are outsized relative to the past 17 months. And I think it's that risk that is incredibly inspiring, that despite everything that's going on, you and others and people in our community, for the first time even, are standing up, speaking out, doing things that they've never done before because they felt inspired and they know it's the right thing to do. And you have been at the center of that, Robin. How you've showed up in leading your organization and how you showed up in championing the Black Lives Matter movement in our community is just so inspiring. And then there's beauty. You said the last 17 months have been just beautiful. And that's not to say that they haven't been challenging in so many ways as well, but the beauty in all of it, I think, is inherent in some of the things that you talked about as well, how people have come together and cared for each other and been there for each other in ways that perhaps they've never been before, and how all these entities in our community have figured out something that Achieve Brown County has believed in for a long time, which is the value and the impact of collective impact, coming together and sharing resources and lifting up our shared commitments and responsibilities to serve the needs of more people, if not all people in our community collectively. There is tremendous beauty in that, and that is something to be celebrated. Again, Robin, you played such a huge role in inspiring that among all of us and the organizations that we're all part of. So again, I couldn't not get the feels, if you will, in listening to everything that you just said.
Thank you.
I am now looking at the clock and we are 2 minutes over budget. I want to be respectful of your time. There's certainly more we could talk about, and I'm happy to keep talking if you've got a few more minutes. I do too. And I don't want to shortchange this conversation because I think it's really important for people to hear from you directly through as many mediums as possible like this. So let's look ahead for a moment. We're 17 months into a pandemic that sadly is ramping up once again with the Delta variant, as you pointed out. Schools are facing tough choices. Our communities are facing tough choices relative to how we all respond to that. What do you envision for the work of We All Rise in particular? Talk to us about what are the next 3 months, 6 months, year or beyond going to look like for you? What do you want it to look like for you and your organization?
So I think you mentioned it before. I want to be at the center with a bunch of other community members that are going to continue to have racial and social justice at the forefront of their work, and really prioritize their work with the folks in our community that are the most marginalized, the most underserved. And specifically for We All Rise, I really want to be a part of a future that helps to eliminate the tabooness of mental health in our community. And mental health is not just clinical. It's a social thing too. It's about individual therapy. It's about group therapy. It's about wellness in so many ways. And so that is what We All Rise wants to be doing in the next 6 months. We want to be having conversation with our partners, and growing our staff to be able to support the influx and the need that is prevalent in our community. But we want to be rich in providing clinical and social mental health for community members, because literally the pandemic has catastrophized a lot of the issues that have been prevalent for folks. And right, we all as individuals have had our own struggles, but nobody expected this. And
Right.
one of the leaders from our organization, she named our fundraiser last year, our virtual fundraiser, nothing like we thought it would be. And so like I think about that, and I think about the next 6 months, and I try not to cap myself anymore. Right. And I kind of go with the flow of community and go with the flow of what our clients need. And really, I'm depending on the folks and the leaders that are around me to get the word out about what it is that folks are saying that they need. And so I don't know that as the
Right.
director. I do know that folks come in, and if you believe what they're telling you, then you learn very quickly what the need is in your community. And so I'm committed to believing what my clients tell me. Committed to believing what my staff tell me, and leveraging my privilege and my voice and my connections to be able to get the word out to other community members. And so Rachel, who directs our communication and marketing here, she gets the word out really quickly through email and social media and so many different avenues of creativity. She gets the word out to those that can help to make an impact. And so that's what I want to do. I want to be at the center with other folks that are prioritizing social and racial justice. I want to create an organization of sustainability. So we're really new. And this is scary being new, and also having so many folks that are depending on us every single day. And so with the newness, there's new challenges every day. I'm young, I'm 30 years old as a director. And so every day I'm learning how to be better. I'm falling on my face in ways, and still having to be that resilient risk taker, and still having to live a life where I've grew up with my own set of traumas, right? And do my own personal healing work. And then as a mom, and it'll go back to the beginning of our conversation, it has really been a challenge for me to shift gears from a mom that was a student and traveling and things like that, to a mom that is a director, done with school right now, and really just getting used to what the day-to-day is like, not in chaos, right? I've operated that way for quite some time as a child, and then as an adult that had a baby very early. And so my daughter has been on the journey of college with me for a long time. And I always said, I'm going to go get that master's. I'm a first generation homeowner and also a first generation graduate. And so
It's awesome.
there's a psyche part that's going on right now of
I
like,
believe
what do I
it.
do next, right? Like, I'm supposed to be busy. I'm supposed to be chaotic. And so sometimes I'm in this office right here, and there's people moving all around me, Spencer, and I just have to remember to breathe, right? And so that my anxiety doesn't get the best of me, I have to remember to breathe, and that it is going to take some time to get used to not always being in chaos. That I now have time for personal friendships and growing relationships, that before it's like a high and a buy, because I'm up till midnight because I'm trying to get this degree, and I want my kids to look up to me and see that I followed what my goals were in life. And I worked really diligently and hard, and I took risk, and I will continue to do that. But also that you don't always have to be traumatized to triumph, right? And so you can breathe, you can enjoy life, you can prioritize your mental health, and then also owning every single day that everybody doesn't have the privilege to do that. And so when clients come in, I remember that that's not their reality, right?
Right.
Am fortunate right now, but most Americans are one paycheck away from poverty, and that's the reality. And so I stay connected, and I stay humble and grounded in that. And I mean, let's be at the center and realize that like we are all in this together, and nobody is any different.
Amen to that, Robin. And to that point, you said you're focusing on being I'm going to paraphrase here, best mom, the best executive director, the best community member that you can be, but you've pointed out your age a couple times and said, you're learning and falling on your face. And I would tell you that at age 47, that's still happening as well. So you're not alone. We are all in this together. And if there's a theme for me in listening to you and having this conversation, which has just been fantastic, and I'm so glad that you chose to hang out a little longer, is that you are the very definition of daring greatly. Brene Brown has popularized the concept through the work of the book that she wrote a number of years ago of the same name. But the whole idea of daring yourself to show up as your true authentic self, and just being willing to take those risks in being you, and challenging yourself to be and do the very best you can as a mom, as a leader, as a human being, even you, and through the story that you shared and the work that you do and the life that you lead, Robin, are the very definition of that. And I truly mean that as a compliment. You are a living model of what it means to dare greatly for all of us in everything that you do.
I'll say this. I learned this from the leaders of Black Lives Matter, Opal, Alicia Garza, and Patrisse Cullors. There's a TED Talk that they have where they say, Opal says, one of the biggest things that I've learned is to be calm and trust the team. And so I've had some wonderful pastors and leaders here in Green Bay that have said, obviously you're not an expert at everything, young lady, So what you are expert at, like supporting people, being there for people while they stand up for themselves, you do that really, really well every single day. And then you depend on the other folks that are around you to do what they do really, really well. And so I've been blessed. I'm fortunate to be able to share some of my history and my background, but I be calm and trust the team, right? I have an incredible team of women and men that are around me every single day that do crazy amounts of work to make We All Rise possible, and to get the word out and to help celebrate every single day. And so I'm always like, be calm and trust the team. I panic a lot. I'm nervous always with certain things, and most of these conversations that I'm having they're first times for me. But the lived experience, it's in me, like you kind of mentioned. And so this morning before even this conversation, I just remembered to breathe and just to be honest about what I feel and what comes to mind, and allow the organic truth to come forward.
Amen. That's good advice for anybody, just to be calm, trust the team, and breathe. I agree. One more question for you. You've talked at times throughout our conversation about the work that you and your organization are doing with other organizations and people throughout our community. So what can we, and by we I mean not just Achieve Brown County in this case, but every other organization and community member, what can we do to support and partner with you and your organization to help do the work that you do?
Yeah. So I know that there's so many conversations and different things that are happening across our community. But I think we have a real opportunity to create some sort of networking connection that just says, how do we get young people to do first things for first times together? That's where I want to start with our young people work and other community members. How do we get more of that happening? And so one of the most beautiful things that I've learned and I look back at is sometime when they were able to do snowboarding and ice skating and all that, and what their eyes and their joy look like, and then how quickly that became one of the most memorable moments in their life. We have so many talented young people in our community, And I think it should be it's our duty to come together to be able to figure out how we get more young people having the opportunities of a lifetime here in Green Bay. We all talk about how resourceful we are as a community, and the commitment has to go to amplifying the voices of young people. And so I think that that's where the partnership for the future of We All Rise, there's many opportunities for partnership, but my focus is amplifying the voices of young people, really changing and being a part of changing their futures for the better. And so I think that that's where the partnership has to happen and start.
Well said. Robin, thank you. I can't even begin to tell you how grateful I am to have had the opportunity to not just meet you, but spend now 45 minutes of our morning together. You are a gift to our community. I cannot stress that enough. Again, by virtue of just who you are and the work that you do, you are showing all of us what it means to dare greatly. And I cannot wait to have another conversation about how Chief Brown County can partner with you and We All Rise in doing exactly what you just talked about, truly lifting up the voices and lived experiences of our young people and creating a community in which they can truly thrive and have the very best life that is possible for them. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for watching. Robin, hang on for just a moment after we go off live, because I want to touch on one more thing with you offline, but again, such a pleasure. Thank you. And again, thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank y'all.